The choice that consumed him. 2 paths, 1 crime. The rain did not just fall. It hammered against the asphalt of the deserted parking lot like 1,000 accusations. Elias, his coat soaked through and his pockets empty, saw it, a heavy leather duffel bag huddled against a concrete pillar. When the zipper gave way, the dull glow of streetlights hit the stacked ink and paper. $1 million. It was the answer to every debt and the end of every sleepless night. But as the wind howled, the silence of the lot felt heavy with a cost he couldn't yet see. At that moment, the universe split. One, Elias reached out, his fingers trembling with greed and the sudden, terrifying hope of a new life. The other Elias stood back, his heart hammering against his ribs, seeing not wealth, but a tether to a world of violence he didn't want to inhabit. The choice hung in the humid air, a fracture in time that would lead to 2 different men, 2 different lives, and one inescapable truth about the weight of a soul. Path A. The money felt heavy in the trunk of his rusted car, but heavier still in his mind. Elias moved into a high-rise apartment, surrounded by marble and glass, yet he never once felt at home. He spent the bills in fits of manic joy, buying things he didn't need to impress people he didn't like. But every clink of a champagne glass sounded like a footstep in a hallway, and every shadow on the wall looked like a man coming to take it all back. Path B. Elias walked 3 miles in the rain to the nearest precinct. The fluorescent lights of the station were cold and honest. He pushed the bag across the scarred wooden desk toward Officer Flint. There was no reward, no fanfare, just the scratch of a pen on a report and the sudden, incredible lightness in his chest. He returned to his small, cramped apartment, the debt still there, but the air finally felt breathable. Path A. Paranoia became his only companion. Elias stopped answering the door. He installed 3 locks, then 4. He spent his nights sitting by the window, peeking through the blinds at every car that slowed down on the street below. The wealth hadn't bought him freedom. It had built him a gilded cage. He realized too late that when you steal from the shadows eventually come to collect. Path B. The struggle continued, but it was a quiet, clean hardship. Elias took a second job at a local workshop, his hands becoming calloused and stained with grease. Mr. Forge, the shop owner, watched him work with a silent nod of approval. There were nights when dinner was meager, but Elias slept soundly, his dreams unburdened by the weight of 1,000,000 stolen secrets. Path A. The moral decay was a slow rot. To protect his secret, Elias lied to his mother, his friends, and finally, to himself. He became a ghost in his own life, a man of means with no meaning. He sat in expensive bars, drinking top-shelf whiskey that tasted like ash, watching his reflection in the mirror and failing to recognize the hollowed-out stranger staring back. Path B. Years passed, and the hardship bore fruit. Elias didn't become rich, but he became a man of his word. He sat on a porch with his friend Ezra, sharing a simple meal and watching the sun dip below the horizon. He had earned his place in the world through sweat and honesty. His legacy wasn't written in a bank ledger, but in the trust of those who knew him. Path A. The end came not with a whimper, but with the heavy thud of a boot against wood. The men who owned the money had finally tracked the scent of his spending. Mordecai, a man with eyes as cold as the coins he hunted, stood over Elias in the middle of his marble floor. The $1 million was gone, spent on a life of fear, and now the debt was due in blood. Path B. When Elias finally closed his eyes for the last time, he was surrounded by the quiet hum of a life well lived. He owned nothing but his name, but that name was spoken with respect. He left behind a small shop, a garden he had tended, and a community that felt his absence like a missing heartbeat. He had chosen the hard path, and it had led him home. In the hazy space between life and death, the 2 versions of Elias met in that same rainy parking lot. The man of gold and blood looked at the man of grease and peace. "Was it worth it?" the tragic Elias asked, his voice a rasp of regret. The honest Elias didn't answer with words. He simply looked at his hands, empty of stolen gold, but full of the light of a clear conscience. Elias blinked. The rain was still cold. The bag was still there, huddled against the concrete. The $1 million sat waiting, a silent promise and a silent threat. He looked at the leather handle, then up at the dark, unforgiving sky. He realized then that the crime wasn't in the taking, but in what the taking would take from him. He turned his back on the bag and walked into the dark, finally free.